All right, welcome everybody to the year-end webinar series. This is actually the last in the series. This one is called Cracking the Code, a step-by-step guide to creating your own custom reports. And this one is presented by Scott Rockins. And a little bit later in the webinar, we're also going to have Robert Clark in talking about Windward Intelligence reporting. So this is going to be a pretty special show today. And again, we've been doing this for a little bit. We have one little mistake on our slide here. It says today, but today is December 14th, and we're going over the cracking the code. But these are all the topics that we covered, and all of the ones from the past are already uploaded to our webinar archives, which is located at windwardsoftware.com/webinars. There's actually a little button there that says view the webinar archives or something along those lines. You can click there and get to any of the recordings. And before we start, we want to just tell you about a coupon that we have going on right now. It's a 10% off any of the professional services that that you could use in your business to get things done a little bit more efficiently. There's a promo code year-N-23 that auto applies. And some of you today are probably here wondering about reporting, and we want you to consider the reporting plan. If you're watching this webinar, I'd be perfect for you. You'll receive some assistance and best practices for inventory reports, customer reports, invoice reports, custom ledger reports. And after today's webinar, we're going to set an additional 10% live if you use the promo code webinar when you check out. All right, we're going to move this on over to Scott. He's going to start presenting about the custom reporting today.
Thank you, Kyle. Let me just flip the screen over to my screen. And I think we're seeing my screen now. Yeah, okay. Thank you for coming, everyone, to our last presentation of the year. Today, we're gonna go over different ways you can customize the reporting in System 5, and in some cases, customize just the screen in System 5 to get more out of the reporting than what you see if it's been installed out of the box. A lot of these little tips and tricks we're going to go through today can be missed in your initial implementation or just aren't top of mind because we're trying to get you running the system as opposed to reporting on the data, and can really help you take a report that is almost what you need and make it what you need. And as Kyle mentioned near the end of the webinar, my colleague Robert Clark is going to join us, and Robert's become a good resource and a little bit of our resident expert on Windward Intelligence. So he's going to give us a little bit of a chat on how he's been using it with customers and how he's been working with it, and a little bit about what's possible. So first, I'm going to go through a little trick that helps you with the grids in System 5. So specifically the invoice grid, maybe the purchase order grid, and a lot of the reports and how you can add fields to them. Then we're going to talk about 3 specific reports. Just a little warning here, to get through all of these reports and show you what's possible, I won't be able to go too in depth on anything specifically. So we'll jump through a lot of different areas here. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is take these 3 reports and consider playing around with them and customizing them until you get the report you've been looking for. The first thing we're going to go through here is, well, yeah, and here's why. I think we do this often at Windward, and we come up with KPIs or key performance indicators. And finding the right report to track your vital business statistics is a lot like tracking your blood pressure or something like that. If you want your business, you want to know how successful you're being, of course, you need the reports to make great decisions. And some of these reports, you just need one extra field to make that happen. The first report we're going to talk about is really every invoice. So how you can customize the grid. So I'm going to open up Windward and I'm going to edit a transaction. And let's pick something with a little bit of, I'll pick this work order for Smith Construction. And you'll see that I've customized it a little bit right away. So two things that I've done was, in my particular fictional business, I have a situation where I often special order or order products for customers direct, and I want to keep an eye on the margin in case maybe I'm paying more for that product on this particular order than I normally do. So I've added the margin field between the price and the total. Also, when I'm shipping things to Smith Construction, I often have to not just know what the customer ordered and what I've shipped them, but know what I've staged for delivery, what's ready to be shipped. So I've added a column where I can add some text to each line to indicate, oh, is that prepared or do I need to prepare that? So there's a lot of things you can do. These are two examples. To customize a grid, and I'd like you to keep in mind that most places in Windward, not all, but most places where there's a grid like this, you can do what I'm showing you. And there is a great resource in the customer care portal, a good solution article about this. You right click in the grid and hit this customize button. Now, although this isn't a report, it adds more information to every transaction. And what you do is you find the piece of information that you want to add. So perhaps maybe I want the discount percentage visible on screen at all times. I choose that and I hit show column. And this part's a little counterintuitive. You have to switch away from the current user to a different user, and then it saves the settings for the current user. So if you're looking to do this for everyone, you want to start up here at all users, pick something like pack size, hit show column, and flip to a different user. And that will customize the grid. Sometimes it takes you a couple swings at it to get it right. You can also move it around in the list like that to create a user interface that's more suitable for your business specifically. You can also color code the columns, change the fonts, and change the actual words that are here to create a user interface that's more useful when it comes to invoices or POs. And this is also something we'll use in some of the custom reporting I'll go through. Some of the reports have the same feature, and there's 10 fields that aren't on the report until you add them. I see your question there, Mike. Thanks for the question. So Mike's asking, is there something that explains what the different columns do? Not in particular, and it depends on the report you're using. So in some cases there probably is, Mike, and in some cases it's a little hard to find that information. I have a lot of topics to cover, so I apologize for the fast pace of this webinar, but the idea is it'll give you some things to try and play around with. The first report we're going to look into is the invoice report. If you're looking to report on the sales in a given time frame, or even the sales that were written in a given time frame, this report is very powerful. People use it for all sorts of different purposes. To find the invoice report, go to reports, sales reports, and it's down here under customer and invoice reports. And there it is right there. Oops, let me show that again, invoice report. As soon as you open the invoice report, what you'll notice is that there's a ton of toggles. So to start off, before you even get into customizing it in an in-depth way, you can pick all these different options to report on different types of sales. So for example, some customers want to know, some Windward customers, some of you ask me, well, I want to know not just what business I have completed, so not just my accounts receivable, but I want to know what I've written. So what people have agreed to purchase that I might still have on order during a time frame, because it helps me know how business is actually going. So if I include work orders, that makes the invoice report more like a sales that have been written report, or some people just call it a written sales report. You can also show things like profit analysis or invoice lines specifically right on the report if you prefer, or take them out for less detail. So this can very quickly become a report that shows you a lot of data, maybe too much in some cases, about what's gone on in the invoicing side or the sales side of things. And in this report, on top of the toggles, you can also right-click, and you guessed it, customize the grid. So to go back to your question there, Mike, there's a lot of these little areas, and most of them are fairly self-explanatory, but not at all times. So maybe the PO number is important, then I can add that. In regards to this specific report, I have found with customers before that these dates, which is our invoice dates, can be quite helpful. For example, if you have a business process where you always write an estimate first, you flip it to a work order when the customer agrees to buy, and of course flip it to an accounts receivable when you deliver, then you can see how long it takes you for given customers to take it from an estimate to a work order. You can look at your delivery information here if you don't like using the regular delivery interface. I've seen people use this report in a simpler way where they take off these details and view them. Oops. And it just turns into a sales report, really. Like, this is what I ran. This is who bought stuff from me. Some people look at that as a daily report. And the report can be filtered by lookup words if you'd like to exclude or include different information. So maybe you have certain invoices that are you want to include or exclude. You can add lookup words to them to filter them in or out. You can do the same with customers. So you can filter groups of customers. You can add free-form columns that you've created by the invoice level or the line level. And so there's a lot of tweaking and customizing you can do with this report. Also, once you build it the way that you like it, you can save a copy so that you don't have to rebuild it every time. This invoice report, very powerful tool. And I think usually with most clients that I implement, if they're looking for a sales report, this is one of my first stops because it just gives them so many options. And here's an example of, I should say, let's try and save one, shall we? So let's add that. And if I hit save here, that's what saving it looks like. So now it's available on the list. So that's the invoice report, and there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. I guess the most common things that I've seen people add are commission lines, delivery dates, PO numbers, things like that. So if you're looking for a sales report, try the invoice report. Lots of information about what's going on in your business. The second report we're going to touch on today is the design inventory report. And maybe I'm overstepping here, but I think this is one of the most powerful reports in our software because of its versatility. And you can view all kinds of things about your stock by building this report out in different ways. And again, you can save your settings and keep the report for later use. One thing that came up in our other webinars, which I will touch on today, is how to use the report to report on oversolds. And another thing that is commonly used is the use of a lookup word, which I'll touch on again here. if you're not familiar with it, this is where you find this report. Go to Inventory and Purchases, Inventory Reports, and here at the top, you'll see Print Inventory Reports. So once you save a report, it'll be available here for later use. If you want to design a new one, which is what I'll do now, you click Design. And here's the interface. There are so many toggles and options here. I could probably do a whole webinar just on this report, but we're going to go through some of the basics and most frequently used ones that I see with customers. So first thing that came up in one of our previous webinars about counting was, how do I find my oversolds? If I want to isolate my oversolds, how do I do that? And this toggle right here can help you with that. So if I list only oversold right there as a filter right out of the gate, it will only show me the oversold product, which can be very handy. So keep that in mind when we get to a later step. What if I only list my oversolds? I suspect I cleared my oversolds in the last webinar, so I may not be able to demonstrate that. Here you can filter by category, and that I think pretty much speaks for itself, but you can also do a range of categories. So you just pick what you're reporting on, which supplier you're reporting on. I'm going to take that out for now, or brand. And then, although I've not used a lot of these filters because they're quite specific, you can report on specific location codes, price ranges, descriptions, part numbers, all sorts of different things from here that can customize the report to your needs. Also, this options area, I'll point out a couple things on here that you may want to consider, but for example, if you're reporting on serial numbers, you'll want to tick that. If you are reporting on, say, barcodes, because you're trying to barcode the product that's not barcoded, you want to click this. This one's good for oversolds. And then you'll see some here, list parts not sold or not purchased. And what this will do is it'll line you up to create a date range filter, parts not sold in a date range filter, which changes it into a report that can be filtered by date. No matter which filters and options you choose, you can then choose which information about the products or services on the report that you want to see. So I've got some basic detail here. Because it's often the case that people want to export this report to Excel for other purposes, I usually recommend, just in case you want to load anything back into the software, to always have these two on there, category and part number. I've got some very basic information about my products here, and you can see there's quite a number of different things I can pull about the products in this list. All my different price levels, quantity discounts, and so on. But if you want to make it into a sales report, you can also go down here, and this is the month-to-date sales for 0 is the current month, -4 is 4 months ago. I can create a sales report. Or I can see my stock aging. And some of these are just like that last tab, where if I put a range, if it says range here, that means it's going to let me define the range later. So here, I'm just going to put one of those on. So this will let me define a range of dates. So I can do lots of things. And here I'll just whip up this report really quick. Oh, what did I filter too much on here? It's probably the date range. What am I missing? Got myself in trouble already.
Is there a category filter? Oh, you got no subcategory.
Yeah, let's go all.
There you go.
Thanks, Rob. All right, so let's put some of these ranges on so you can see how that works. And we'll do a month-to-date sales filter. So if I view this now, I can see the sales over different time periods. I don't have a lot of. Another cool thing you can do is you can quite easily sort it just like you do in Excel by clicking the column headers. So I can see which things were hot sellers in November, for example. If you've got something with a date range, sold date range 0, here you can configure the dates for that range. And there's just such a wide variety of things you can do that there's a lot of customization you can do to get the report that you want. And Mike, I can see you're asking again, well, where is the information about what all of this does? This particular report does have a good article written by our customer care team, which I'll reference at the end of the webinar. And it does have a lot of information. I'm fairly sure to say it does not cover every single tab in here. So you just have to play around a little bit or get our help. So you can really build out this report. Now, because it came up specifically, I'm just going to bring up this lookup words filter. So say you built this report to filter for your oversolds. You then could run this report to add a lookup word to all the items on the report. And then when I run the report, it would flag them. I could then use that flag to build my count, as we reviewed in the previous webinars. So lookup words are outside of our topic today, but a very powerful tool, and this report can help you add, remove, or filter by lookup words. There's more than I can possibly even know on this report. So, because I want to get through the other report too, it's also highly powerful, we're going to leave the design inventory report at that. Very powerful tool. The last tool, which I think gets overlooked a lot and might be really handy for marketing purposes, is the customer supplier report. So under reports, down near the bottom, there's these customer and supplier reports. Here, you can design your own customer supplier report in much the same way, save it for later use. On this report, you have a similar number of options and filters. So I can display different groups of customers by customer type, by department. I can add all kinds of filters for date ranges to things like customers that have purchased this much of this product in this time frame using purchase filters. And you can pick what you can want to know about the customers. So say I'm going to get their names and emails. Where's the email on this? I'll put their phone numbers on here. Like that. And I use a purchase filter, then I'm able to create a report that I might export and say, use with a mass email marketing program. Things like that. Here again, I have the option to, excuse me, add or remove lookup words or exclude or include customers based on lookup word. By using this tool and say right-clicking and exporting it to Excel, I can create data for another program. And again, not enough bandwidth in one webinar to go through all these different options, but here you can use purchase filters, which I think is pretty powerful. If you want to know which customers purchased this particular product that is usually serviced 1 year from purchase, and they purchased it 1 year ago, get their emails, and then send them all an email to see if you can trigger a service, you could use this report to do that. So all the reports in System 5, or not all, but most have this feature where you can customize the grid. And these three reports, the invoice report, design inventory report, and customer and supplier report, are so customizable that it's my belief you could probably report on almost anything with them. But if you can't find the report you want or haven't been able to use these tools to get it, we also have developed an integration with Microsoft Power Business Intelligence, which we call Windward Intelligence. You may have seen the marketing about it. And at this point, I want to hand it over to Robert because he's been doing quite a bit of work with it, and he can tell you a little bit about Windward Intelligence and how it pulls information out of our database and presents it in some really cool looking user-friendly reports. Rob, do you want to take over from there?
Yes, thank you. So I'm clicking show your screen.
I think you need to hit the change presenter.
Oh, thank you. Change presenter to me. Okay. Show my screen. Which screen are you looking at?
You've got the GoToWebinar cracking the code screen up.
Okay.
Bear with us, guys.
Okay, that's okay. I'll just make it work. I'll bring this down here. Okay. Okay. So you see the Power BI now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is a website. This is app.powerbi.com. And the nice thing is, I'll show you behind the scenes in a second, under the hood, so to speak. This is my Windward data. These are my Windward categories. These are salespeople that work at my fictional company with my Windward data set. I've got me here, Robert, Carl, different staff. So this is a report you can publish online, and you can even get this reports like these on your mobile device, tablet, phone, what have you. And this is just one of several reports that we've created out the box. So as Scott had mentioned, Power BI, so Microsoft Power BI is just a Microsoft product, a reporting product that allows you to hook directly into the Windward database and create reports that perhaps are not in Windward, or perhaps you want data from 2 or 3 different reports, which is not uncommon, where a client will love this report and want 2 or 3 columns from that report. So instead of trying to merge those 2 reports together, this is a way where we can find the data we need. By over on the right-hand side, I've got all these different data points, categories, commission type, customers, and I could pop these different fields directly from the Windward database into these reports. So for clients that purchase the Windward Intelligence, they get these custom reports out the box. And I've been working on some that are really super rough draft that don't have as much color or pizzazz, just to show you, this is just kind of behind the scenes at my workshop here, where I'm making up a report for purchase orders. So based on your sales history and how long it takes to receive an item and the cost, yada yada, we could figure out, have Power BI calculate for you the optimum highs and lows, so you can optimize your reordering. Something I've tried to do in Windward for years, and sort of works with Excel, but can work better with Power BI. So the good news is there are some reports out the box, and if there's a report that you're looking for that we don't have, someone like myself and one of the programmers can work with you to pull that data in and then report on it. And for those of you that are a bit more techie and want to learn how to do this, Microsoft itself teaches courses on Power BI. YouTube has some free courses. I'm taking a course from Udemy. But if you don't want to do any of that hard, dirty work, you can just have someone like myself design these reports for you. So just a little bit of other reporting. One of the real things I love about Power BI is because it's pulling it directly from the database, it actually runs a bit faster. And you can even, one last thing before we sign off here, you can even slice the data. So I'm looking at this is a salesperson report. I've got Lionel, RC4, Carl, and Robert. If I click on any of these data points, like if I click on RC4, it changes the underlying report. It slices it. It tells me, okay, what's RC4 been selling? If I click on Carl, what's Carl been selling? He's been selling lighting and some labor and some vehicle accessories. He hasn't been as active as the other ones. So kind of cool how you can click on one data point and see how it relates to the other fields in your report. So a little extra help for those of you wishing to have other reports, faster reports, or perhaps even reports on your mobile device. I hand it back to you, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to share my screen again here so I can show you guys a few of the free resources. So one of our attendees here, Mike, has asked a few pointed questions. Some of the things I showed you today, there are not full how-to exact direction on how to do everything. I can say that in the customer care knowledge database, there is a good tool for the design inventory report that walks through a lot of what I just showed you today in step-by-step instructions, as well as a great tool for customizing the grid. In the Learning Academy, if you use the tag reporting, you will find information on a lot of reporting tools. And that's an excellent question, Lana. Since Robert did such a great presentation on Windward Intelligence, Lana was asking, do you have to be in the cloud to use Windward Intelligence? You do not have to be in the cloud to use Windward Intelligence. It is a lot less work for us to set it up in the cloud because essentially you're using a server that we have access to at all times instead of your own server. So it is less expensive in the cloud than it is on premise, but we do both. We install it on people's servers, which is just a little more work for yourself and your IT team and our IT team, but it works in a similar fashion in either case. So there's some good free resources here. And as Kyle outlined at the beginning, reporting is something that's a very important part of using our software. So often when you're in implementation and we onboard you, we're not as concerned about reporting. We just want you using the software day-to-day operations, make sure your staff is trained on how to use it. That's a large task for us all to achieve. Down the road, once you have a year or two of data, you might be using the canned reports and getting a bit frustrated that you don't have the exact report you need, or doing as Robert's saying, and using two reports, pulling them out to Excel to build your own report. Engage with someone on our team. So Robert and I are two of the professional services people, but there's also Harry and Alan, and we can help you build these reports so you don't have to stumble over it. We can just help you with it if you purchase a reporting plan. Or engage with Windward Intelligence, which gives you 7 or 8 great out-of-the-box reports that work in the way Robert just demonstrated. Or furthermore, if you purchase Windward Intelligence, you can either learn yourself to build those reports or get, I'd have to say it'll probably be Robert right now, Robert's help building out a new custom report that has that flashy, fast look and is available mobilely, but that sometimes involves a little bit of light programming as well. So that does have an additional fee, just to be transparent there. And this, we'll just close this up, and I just would like to thank all of you. I think a lot of you are repeat customers coming to these webinars over the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's been my pleasure to work with you. And I know that they're kind of quick and I try and fit in a lot of content, but I'm hopeful that we will do some more webinars and events next year. So also some of you are kind enough to complete the survey after the webinar. I really appreciate that. And I've added a couple questions today about the whole series if you happen to come to the whole thing, and just about things you might like to see in the future. So there's a quick, as soon as we close up here, it'll ask you how we did, and there's a place where you can also put in potential topics for us to look at for down the road. If I don't chat with any of you, again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And just because I'm Scott, may the force be with you. Thanks so much for your time.